If there's an emergency, I'll call an Uber or 911, said Madison Core, a Philadelphia resident, to the Washington Post. This 24-year-old's opinion reflects the reality of many Generation Zers in the United States, where American teens are delaying getting their driver's licenses. While driving license rates have seen an uptick since 2021, this phenomenon is a symbol of post-pandemic recovery and still remains far below 1995 values. In parallel, the automotive industry's slow recovery is expected to stagnate in 2024 as demand for new vehicles slows down. This will put pressure on the auto industry's profit margins, especially as China's automotive exports continue to grow to balance an uncertain and oscillating national market, and as new electric vehicle prices drop, an incentive spearheaded by Tesla since 2023 to counter the electric vehicle market slowdown, and which Stellantis' CEO Carlos Tavares has warned could end in a bloodbath, as this aggressive price reduction strategy can disregard production costs. To incentivize growth, automakers must contend with the preferences of a new generation of consumers, Generation Z, also known as Zoomers. Developments in the field of online and omnichannel car sales, generative artificial intelligence, and electric propulsion are well on their way, which could appeal to a tech-savvy, environmentally conscious generation. Welcome, and thank you for joining me for this Data on Stage webinar on Gen Z and the future of the automotive market. I am Mathilde Carlier, Senior Researcher at Statista, and today we will look into Gen Z's automotive consumer behavior, including an overview of their attitudes towards sustainability and mobility, their perception of popular brands, and whether their car purchasing behaviors truly differs from older generations. Generation Z, comprising people born between the mid to late 1990s and 2012, is often hailed as the generation more interested in sustainability than its older counterparts. Around 69.6 million Zoomers lived in the United States, representing nearly 21% of the total US population and around 20% of consumers with their own cars, despite the fact not all of Gen Z is of driving age. In Germany, the number of Gen Z residents reached over 12 million, closer to 14% of the population. As part of this sizable consumer pool is entering the workforce, companies face the challenging task of marketing for a generation predominantly concerned by the cost of living, unemployment, and climate change, ranked in that order. So, is Gen Z's apprehension regarding price inflation, unemployment rates, and the negative impact of climate change effectively turning this generation away from passenger cars? Well, over a third of the global Gen Z had stopped driving cars to reduce their environmental impact, with another quarter planning to do so in the future. For the same purpose, 16% of Zoomers reported having purchased an electric vehicle, with 41% planning to do so in the future. However, the cost was the main barrier to being more sustainable faced by Gen Z, which made the electric vehicle market, often conflated with luxury, inaccessible to this generation. In the first half of 2022, over half of EVs on offer in the United States cost more than 50,000 euros, with nearly half of the models on offer in Europe falling within the same price range. China, where the largest share of EVs on offer cost between 20,000 and 30,000 euros, was the market with the cheapest electric cars available, and Chinese EV makers employ a dynamic export strategy that could help bring affordable EVs to the Gen Z consumer. Paired with the EV price war started by Tesla, this could incentivize Generation Z buyers. However, lower selling prices also lower electric vehicles' resale value, which could hinder mainstream EV adoption. If cost is the main barrier to sustainability, are Zoomers more reliant on alternative types of mobility? This question has a complex answer. 42% of Gen Zers in the United Kingdom and 40% of US Gen Zers reported using public transport, walking, biking, or carpooling to support environmental sustainability in the past 12 months, compared to a third of both UK and US millennials. These results, however, vary greatly depending on each country's specificities. Generation Z in China and Germany, for example, do not use public transport, walking, biking, or carpooling for sustainability reasons more than other generations. While this suggests Gen Z's mobility habits are not inherently related to their commitment to sustainability, especially as mobility habits are greatly dependent on where you live, this new generation is still far more in tune with alternative mobility than their predecessors. In Europe, 42% of those under 30-year-olds reported using a private vehicle more than 4 times per week, a share which climbed to around half the respondents for those between 30 and 45, and over 3/4 for those over 45 years old. Gen Z not only uses alternative mobility more than older generations, but is also actively planning to increase its use of public transit and micromobility, making it the first truly multimodal generation. However, while Gen Z is the generation that uses their own or a household car the least for their daily commutes, and while owning a car is not as important to them as other generations, over half of US Zoomers, half of German Zoomers, and half of UK Zoomers intended to purchase a car in the following 12 months. While this share was lower than millennials, car purchasing intention was higher than that of Gen Xers and baby boomers. Interestingly, Gen Z in the UK and US was the second most likely generation to change the make of their primarily used car on the next possible occasion, while tying with millennials for first place in that metric in Germany. This suggests a great potential for automotive brands to attract these new consumers in Western markets. So, to summarize what we just looked at, while Gen Z is the first truly multimodal generation, it is still interested in car purchasing. Zoomers' interest in sustainability and worries regarding the increasing cost of living are, however, key factors to keep in mind when marketing for this generation. 38% of US Zoomers, 29% of UK Zoomers, and 26% of German Zoomers rely on brands they know and trust when it comes to cars. And around a quarter of Zoomers in these 3 countries consider themselves well-informed when it comes to cars. But what does that information exactly look like? Well, out of 20 popular car brands, BYD was the only brand which did not yet have an awareness score above 75%, with a 37% of US Gen Zers having heard of the brand, even if simply by name, compared to a third of German Zoomers and nearly 40% of UK Gen Zers. BYD was the Chinese automaker which was the global best-selling electric vehicle manufacturer in 2023, selling over 1 million more cars than Tesla. However, it is also recorded the lowest popularity rate amongst Western Gen Zers, with 12% of US Zoomers and under 10% of UK and German Gen Zers mentioning the brand as one they liked. Luxury German brands, especially BMW, and US brands did better in these rankings. This is unsurprising, as these brands also tended to be the ones Gen Z owned. In the United States, the largest share of Gen Zers reported owning Ford, BMW, and Chevrolet branded cars, compared to BMW, Volkswagen, and Audi in Germany. BMW, Ford, and Audi were the most owned in the UK, while national brands were not as popular. So how does this brand popularity among Zoomers arise? Well, social media might be one of the possible answers. Often considered the chronically online generation, the US Gen Z spent an average of over 4 hours a day on social media, and nearly a third of the global Gen Z started their shopping journey on these platforms, which was the highest share across generations. BMW was the automotive brand with the largest buzz amongst Gen Zers in the US, UK, and Germany, with at least 40% of Zoomers noticing the brand in the media, on social media, or in advertising in the past 3 months. Aside from the impact of social media on car brand popularity, other factors impact Zoomers' car purchases. In the US, safety, fuel efficiency, and low prices were the leading purchase criteria for Zoomers, who are most susceptible to buying new cars. The same could be said for UK Zoomers, though in a slightly different order, while German Zoomers prioritize safety, high quality, and sustainability for everyday use, and were more interested in used vehicles. Brand trust is an important element of the vehicle purchasing process for Gen Z, which tends to be more in tune with a brand's sustainability and alignment with their values. As digital natives, Zoomers also expect a certain level of personalization in their shopping experience, which mobility services providers have already understood. While automotive companies are starting to rely on online services to personalize the consumer experience, the Gen Z shopper may not yet be leaving the in-person dealerships. Under 10% of all US car sales across generations were made exclusively online, with another 43% of buyers using a mix of online and offline retail, and around 7 in 10 consumers interested in using omnichannel retail for their next purchase. Omnichannel retail is therefore becoming increasingly embedded in the automotive market, particularly for electric vehicle buyers. But around 4 in 5 Gen Zers in the US still preferred purchasing their vehicle in person, with under 10% of them preferring online shopping compared to 16% for millennials. One of the primary reasons behind Gen Z's skepticism towards online car sales was the significance of touching, feeling, and test driving a car before buying it, which 81% of US Zoomers found important. Summarizing what we've talked about so far, Gen Zers in Western countries still tend to prefer well-established brands, in part as brand trust is a key aspect of their car purchasing journey. While Zoomers tend to look for personalization in their car buying experience, this generation still prefers to purchase a vehicle in person. Is this truly different from past generations? It depends on how you look at the market. On a global level, while Gen Z remained hesitant of a fully online purchasing process, they still indicated a stronger preference for online car sales than baby boomers, and were also more open to new technologies and business models. Nearly 3/4 of Gen Zers are excited about autonomous driving, with only 12% expressing fears relating to the current autonomous technology, while nearly 4 in 10 baby boomers reported such fears. Nearly 3/4 of the global Generation Z was also interested in battery leasing options for electric vehicles, a share which was marginally higher than millennials, but well over the interest reported by baby boomers. This attention to new technology is already inspiring automakers to cater to a more tech-savvy consumer, for example, through advances in the in-car gaming market. However, this generational divide is not as clear-cut as it can seem. Private cars remain the main mode of transportation for commuting amongst US Zoomers, much like their millennial, Gen X, and baby boomer counterparts. Car usage might have lowered, but it has not yet been overtaken by other forms of mobility, which is also true in other countries such as the UK, Germany, China, and Brazil. Geopolitical factors impact the differences and similarities between generations, but these national contrasts might not paint such a disparate picture of Gen Z. In Brazil and the US, all generations intended to purchase a new car within the 12 months following our 2023 Consumer Insights survey. New cars were the most popular car type for these future purchases, with gasoline remaining the most popular fuel type in consideration. In Germany and France, there is more of a divide, with baby boomers and Generation X on one side and Zoomers and millennials on the other, the latter intending to purchase a car. Gen Zers in these countries were more interested in used vehicles than millennials, but most also considered buying a gasoline car for their next purchase. In China, the only generation reporting higher intentions not to purchase a car than to purchase one were the baby boomers. And new cars were the most popular type amongst all generations who intended to buy a vehicle. The divide, perhaps expectedly, was between younger generations who intended to be more interested in hybrid propulsion and older generations who had a higher interest in internal combustion engine vehicles. So the narrative that Gen Z rejects cars is not new. Instead, it echoes similar worries recorded when millennials started being of age for driving, which shifted as this generation went through lifestyle changes that required heavier reliance on private transportation. While easier access to alternative forms of mobility may impact Gen Z's long-term car purchasing behavior, this new generation of consumers is not quite fully turning away from private cars. So, what are the key takeaways of this webinar? Gen Z is the first truly multimodal generation, but their interest in electric vehicles, sustainability, new technologies, and car ownership can attract them to the automotive market for the right price. Well-established automakers tended to be more popular amongst Zoomers than new players, in part as brand trust remains a fundamental part for this generation's car purchasing process. Finally, despite clear differences between generations, there are also similarities, which suggests the Gen Z consumer is not quite so disinterested in cars. Thank you for coming on this journey through Gen Z's impact on the automotive markets. If you are watching live, don't go anywhere, as we are just about to open the floor for our Q&A. If you are watching the recorded version, thank you for joining. For more expert-led insights across industries, make sure you sign up for future webinars so that you can have access to the data discussed in this webinar and to be part of the live Q&A sessions. Most of the data you have seen in this webinar comes from Statista's Consumer Insights. You can learn more about Gen Z in your country by browsing through the results of this extensive survey conducted once every quarter in a wide range of countries.